Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to all in my virtual class. I am Shahjalal Ahmed Pial, lecturer in Finance and Banking, Milestone College, Uttara. I hope all are fine and well by the grace of Almighty Allah. Dear students, let's start the class. Hello, my dear students. Today I will discuss Chapter 4 Financial Analysis in your first part Finance, Banking and Insurance textbook. Today's discussable topics are how to determine the break-even point, unit and taka, how to determine the total cost and selling price, how to calculate the contribution margin and contribution margin ratio, and how to calculate the margin of safety and margin of safety ratio. Dear students, today's lecture is fully a problem solved in your mathematical topics. Dear students, look at the problem. Tasneem Fashions Limited plans to make 5 lakhs t-shirts in this year. The variable cost per t-shirt is taka 20 and the fixed cost is taka 20 lakhs. The selling price will be determined by adding 25% profit on each cost. Calculate what is the break-even point. Number B. How does fixed cost influence the calculations of break-even point, and explain. C. Calculate break-even point of Tasneem Fashions Limited. And D. Calculate contribution margin ratio and margin of safety ratio of Tasneem Fashions Limited. Dear students, let's go to solve these questions. In the solution, question number A. The break-even point is the point where a company's revenues equals its cost. So, break-even point is a specific selling amount or selling scale where the company's total revenues equals to its total cost. There, position no profits or no loss. Answer to the question number B. A fixed cost is a cost that does not change with an increase or decrease in the amount of goods or services produced or sold. The company's advertising cost, office rent, factory rent, warehouse rent, leasing expenses, telephone expense, bank charge, printing of checks, depreciations and salaries would not increase and therefore would be considered fixed costs. If the fixed cost increases, then the break-even point increases, and if the fixed cost decreases, then the break-even point decreases. So, dear students, fixed cost and break-even points are positive relationships. Solution number question number C. This is the part of mathematical problem. Break-even point or unit.
this is the formula of break-even point. Fixed cost divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Dear students, when you find out the break-even point, you must need it fixed cost, selling price per unit, and variable cost per unit. So, the given that fixed cost is taka 20 lakhs, total product needs 5 lakhs, variable cost per unit 20 taka, and selling price per unit missing. Dear students, when we calculate break-even point, we'll calculate the selling price per unit. So now we will calculate selling price per unit before the calculate break-even point. Working for selling price. Selling price equals to cost price per unit plus expected profit. Dear students, before calculating selling price, we must calculate cost price per unit, because in the questions there are no cost price per unit. So we will calculate cost per unit before calculations of selling price. So we calculate cost per unit. Cost per unit equals to fixed cost per unit plus variable cost per unit. Here, fixed cost per unit equals to total fixed cost divided by total productions plus variable cost per unit. Total fixed cost, which is given in the questions, taka 20 lakhs, and total production also given in the questions, 5 lakhs units, plus variable cost per unit also given in the questions, taka 20. After this calculation, we find out cost per unit, taka 24. So we putting the value in the selling price, cost per unit, and expected profit. Then we will find the selling price. So cost per unit 24 plus expected profit, calculation of the cost per unit into 25% profit. Then profit, expected profit is taka 6 and cost per unit is taka 24 equals to 30, which is the selling price of the product. So break-even point equals to fixed price divided by selling price per unit and variable cost per unit, and also given the value fixed cost 20 lakhs, production unit 5 lakhs, variable cost per unit 20, and selling price 30. That is calculations 30. Now we putting the value in the formula, fixed cost 20 lakhs divided by selling price 30 minus variable cost 20, and break-even units 2 lakhs. Now we calculate break-even taka. Break-even taka equals to break-even unit into selling price per unit. Break-even unit is 2 lakhs and selling price per unit is taka 30 into equals to taka 60 lakhs. The break-even amount is taka 60 lakhs. Dear students, now we calculate contribution margin ratio. Contribution margin ratio equals to contribution margin per unit divided by selling price per unit into 100. So we will find the value of contribution margin per unit at first. Then we will calculate the contribution margin ratio. Working for contribution margin per unit. Here contribution margin per unit equals to selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Selling price per unit is taka 30 minus variable cost per unit is taka 20 equals to taka 10 is contribution margin. Now we will putting the value in the formula of contribution margins ratio. Contribution margin is taka 10 divided by selling price per unit taka 30 into 100. Then it will be value 33.33%. So contribution margin ratio equals to 33.33%. Now we calculate margin of safety. Margin of safety equals to total sales minus break-even sales taka. Total sales equals to total production into selling price per unit minus break-even taka 60 lakhs. Then total sales equals to 1 crore 50 lakhs minus break-even taka 60 lakhs. Then the value will be taka 90 lakhs. This is the margin of safety, taka 90 lakhs. Now we calculate margin of safety ratio. Dear students, we know margin of safety ratio equals to margin of safety divided by total sale into 100. Here margin of safety equals to 90 lakh divided by total sales equals to 1 crore 50 lakhs into 100. Then after calculation we will find the value 60%. So margin of safety ratio is 60%. So my dear students, I hope all are understood how to calculate break-even point, unit or taka, and how to calculate selling price and cost per unit, and how to calculate margin of safety ratio or margin of safety, and how to calculate contribution margin and contribution margin ratio. Thank you.
For further information or any query of you, you must contact with me in various connections as like email. My email address is sohela6@gmail.com. Also WhatsApp number 01674800871, and also Facebook or messengers, and also my channel, YouTube channels.